Molly. Okay.
Appreciate it.
So John, I will have a quick adjustment to ask for to the agenda. So when we get to consent items, I'm gonna chime in real quick, just so everybody's got a heads up on that. And you're muted again, John.
Right. Okay. I can handle it. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. New microphone is supposed to be better with background noise. We'll find out. Okay. And I changed to the Golden Gate Bridge.
I like it.
See if there's any illegals crossing.
Funny.
What else you gonna do?
Aren't pedestrians not allowed on the Golden Gate? Isn't it only vehicular now?
I thought it used to have a walk on one side, I believe.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
it did, but I thought that they
Okay.
took it out. I don't remember though.
I'm checking the water too, see if they're swimming.
Yeah. In
I
San
thought
Francisco.
They banned pedestrians because people were trying to use it as a place to commit suicide.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking as well, Gordon. I was
Okay.
like, I think
Yep.
I read a story
That's
about
been a
it.
problem in the past.
For all
Interesting.
that we're apparently off to a very dark start this fine and shiny Wednesday, last day of March.
Mhm.
You want to change it? It's all yours. Jessica,
Hmm.
did you want to go over something for the change? Because I think it's after 3.
Well, I'm gonna wait until
We have more
Jessica
people.
Bechtel calls
Okay.
does our call to our establishing of quorum and
Okay.
run through on that. And then when we get to consent items, just I'm going to be chiming in and saying, hey, before anybody makes a motion to approve as is, I do have a request for a change.
Great idea.
All
I'm
right.
just adjusting our public comment.
So if you're good, Chair, then we called it to order about 3. We have 11 members present that I counted, so I'll run through real quick. I've seen Carol, Gary, Patty, Gordon, Sharon, Roy, John, Miley, Shelley, Dave, and then Jessica McMullen, sorry, and other PPACG staff and guests are on the line. Is there any members that I missed that joined us? So with that, I think that gives us our quorum. Remember when making motions today to state your name clearly so that we can catch that in the video recording and for the minutes. And if you're not speaking, if you can mute yourself, that cuts down on the background noise. Thank you.
Well, are you waiting for any more people to come yet?
We'll collect them. I take roll or keep an eye on that as we go. So you're set to start your meeting.
Okay. Shall we bring the meeting to order? Since I don't have a script in front of me, I'm kind of winging it a little bit, but you'll bring me up to date, Jessica Mullins. I know you will. Okay.
So the first item is consent items.
The first item is a consent item. Thank you. Oh, bless you. Bless you. All right. We have the agenda. The next item would be the minutes. Any changes or corrections or items you'd like?
I do have a request for a change to the agenda. Tim Taylor from CPACG is actually being replaced by Rick,
What you need.
whose last name is Coffin, who will be kind of giving us a different presentation to talk to us about why we're going to get that presentation later on. So just,
Okay.
there's a change to your agenda. Item 3A will no longer be there.
Okay.
Patty Benter, I make a motion to approve the consent items.
With that change,
As amended,
Yes.
Sharon Brown, I'll second.
Roy Rosenthal, oh, wait. Just a second.
Roy can second too.
I think John just said all in favor, but his mute is back on.
Okay.
Hi, Carol.
Aye.
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 John, your mute's still on. You're still muted for us. Sorry, gang. You had it on for a second and then you turned it back off. And you are muted. There we go. Talk, John.
Okay. That motion passed, okay? Right?
Okay.
Okay, any other changes you want to make?
Mm-mm.
You don't want to, okay. How about the minutes? Do we have any corrections, changes to the minutes from last time?
No.
Hearing none, we have a board financial report. We don't have a report. Can we spend some money now? No, we can't. Okay. At this point, we would go to number 3 for public comments. Has anybody emailed you any comments or things they would like to discuss during the meeting?
No public
Any-
comments were sent in.
Okay,
So what we've
Okay.
got is now Rick Coffin from City PHE is just going to give us a couple of, a little bit of information.
very good. He's up.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And thanks for your flexibility. And I apologize that Tim Taylor couldn't be here today. And thanks for getting us on the agenda quickly, and for being able to work with us over here quickly as well. So we really appreciate it. And I think this is my first community advisory committee meeting, but I've been a member of the PPACG Air Quality Technical Committee for, I think, at least the last 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years or so. So it's nice to see new faces. So yeah, today I'll be talking about the employee traffic reduction program. You may have heard about this. So basically, this type of program is also known as either a TDM or transportation demand management strategy, and also referred to as an employer-based trip reduction strategy in other parts of the country. And it's put in place going back decades now, back to the 80s, primarily as a way to help address traffic congestion, and two, as a ozone reduction strategy. And in recent years, it's also been implemented as a strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation. And we're talking about it more now over the last half year or so, because it was included, or it is included as a near-term strategy in Colorado's greenhouse gas roadmap. And that roadmap was developed over the last year or so, and the final version of it was released in January. So that's that's when the process to develop this type of proposal really was ramped up. And initially, we were looking at doing a statewide requirement. And just recently, it sounds like we've gotten some more guidance from management here at the state. It sounds like it's only going to be a requirement in the Denver Metro North Front Range non-attainment area, ozone non-attainment area. So more word will be out on that very soon. I think an email is supposed to go out sometime today. And once it does go out, I can forward it to you all, so then you can share it amongst yourselves and with your interested members of your community. So yeah, I think that's kind of that popped up pretty recently for us, that change. And Tim Taylor, who was set to do the presentation, was pulled out doing something else. So that's basically why things are shaken up a little bit. But I still wanted to talk about what these programs generally look like. And even though it sounds like it's just going to be a requirement for the Denver area, we would like to encourage that large employers, like those with 100 employees or greater, in other parts of the state, voluntarily develop programs like this. And I guess it's possible that maybe so many years down the road, this regulation could be revised to include parts of the state outside of Denver. But that's all to be determined, and I don't like to speculate on things. But so basically, these types of programs, the main goal is to reduce what's called single occupancy vehicle trips that people make to and from work. And there's usually a threshold that triggers the applicability for an employer. It's usually like, quote, a large employer, and the most common threshold is 100 employees or greater. Some parts of the country, in their programs, it's as low as 10 employees, and then in other parts it's as high as 1,000. And 100 is the most common, and EPA has a guidance document on this, and they recommend 100. So basically, those employers, say hypothetically, if that is the threshold, employers with 100 employees or greater would have to develop a plan to reduce their employees' single occupancy vehicle trips to and from work. So the most common strategies that employers do, and a lot of employers are already taking advantage or offering these types of things. The most common ones are telecommuting, if it's possible for the type of industry, compressed schedules or flex schedules, and carpooling or van pooling, and different types of ride share like that. And then for people who live very close to work, they can either walk or ride their bike, but that's usually limited to 1 or a few miles, and possibly not year round in Colorado. And then also transit, and that's also, obviously there's pros and cons to all those. And yeah, and even in the Denver area, the transit isn't so great. If you're not within half a mile or so of a high frequency transit line. But but yeah, so basically these types of regulations in other states that we've identified basically, require that an employer develop a plan, and they can choose which strategies work best for their company and their area. And then they have a goal to meet that drive alone commute percentage within so much time. And it's usually out like a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years or so. And then if they don't meet the goal, typically they just have to revise the plan, if possible, to try to make improvements. And these types of programs, I also want to mention, like they're what we call enforcement light. So typically, as long as the employer is making an effort to develop and offer these different types of measures, and encourage them, the agency with the authority over the rule, they typically just work with the employer to help try to get them to achieve the goal, instead of going through an enforcement process that includes fines and things like that. It's typically, not the type of route that it goes here, because at the end of the day, the employees choose how they get to and from work, and there's no requirement for them, to commute one way or the other. So I think what we've seen is when employees have the option to do things like this, they typically choose it because it saves money for them, like less money on fuel, less time focusing on driving in traffic. We've heard from folks that even the van pool and rideshare programs, once people get into them, there's a very high retention rate of folks staying in the van pool, because they could do other things instead of driving, and it costs less for them to participate in that than if they were to drive alone. And yeah, so basically that's we're looking at doing this, one, to help the state meet its greenhouse gas reduction goals, but then also for the ozone reduction benefits. And, we realize that the vast majority of the emissions are going to be originating in the Denver area, because that's where the bulk of people live in Colorado. But with that said, we were initially exploring it for other parts of the state, and even like, say the Denver area would have a more stringent set of rules to follow, and a more stringent commute reduction rate. And we were thinking like, well, maybe areas outside of the Denver area can have less of a stringent percentage reduction to meet, just to kind of like softly encourage these types of activities. But as I said before, it looks like, that's not even going to be on the table at all, and it's just going to be a Denver rule. So I guess I just want to go back to, we would like to, if possible, work with you all to help encourage voluntary programs in your area. And that might be something maybe that another committee works on. I know that the Air Quality Technical Committee has their EPA Ozone Advanced program that they just finalized and put out, I think, earlier this year. That the PPACG board, I think the board voted on it and approved it. And this seems like something that maybe would be a good fit for that plan. as a voluntary strategy, because I think they were working kind of in this direction too, to help link employers with different resources like this. So I guess with that, I've done a bunch of talking. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah,
Pat-
yeah, Dave Betzler here. I think it's a great approach using that voluntary or encouraging voluntary compliance. And I like the idea that there's potential for us in the CAC to be spokespersons, if you will, or supporters of this. Question is really on the area of electric vehicles, battery powered vehicles, both cars and especially trucks. If an employer has, is that part of the plan or can be part of the plan that the individual employers are supposed to work? And then second part of the question would really be on the plan itself. If these plans are developed by the individual corporations, is there a review process or is there public input to that or public viewability, if you will, to those plans?
Yeah, great questions. And yeah, thanks for those questions, Dave. Yeah, as far as the EV question, we do plan to work in a alternative compliance route to this, and that can mean a couple different things, but yeah, basically, I think we would like to incorporate something in the rule where, if there's some sort of encouragement of EV adoption, or if someone gets to work, to and from work using an EV, that would be like extra credit, towards the company meeting its goals. And so we do have that in mind, because that's also, the direction that the state, like the governor's office and CDOT, is really pushing EV adoption, and that obviously helps with emission reductions. But other ways of alternative compliance would be like, say if a company, just because, say they're having a hard time developing a plan that will show that they'll reach these goals. Another way for them to comply would be possibly to like replace some equipment that they have on site that would equal to similar emissions reductions. And, there are, depending on the type of equipment, there could be grant money to help with that too. Like we have the Diesel Emission Reduction Act grants, or it also goes by the name of Colorado Clean Diesel grants. So yeah, that's something that we are considering including in the rule. So yeah, great questions.
Hi, Richard. This is Patty Benger. I represent the city of Colorado Springs. And just for clarity, you mentioned that the rule was initially considered statewide, and then it went to Denver. Is that because of the non-attainment status? And the reason I ask is because our region is inching towards being at risk for non-attainment for ozone. And I wanted to know if the rule is predicated on that non-attainment status or if it's geographic.
Hey, Patty, great question. And yeah, actually, originally this process began before the strategy was included in the greenhouse gas roadmap, and it began in the Denver area as an ozone reduction strategy specific to the Denver Metro North Fort Range's ozone non-attainment status. But then when it was added to the greenhouse gas roadmap, it was considered on a statewide basis. But so we did quite a bit of outreach over the past few months. Like we we did a very big mailing campaign where we sent out almost 3,700 letters to large businesses across the state, and another over 100 emails to business contacts like chambers of commerce and economic development councils, and contacts like that statewide. And so there's a few different considerations here. The Denver metro area and north of Denver, they have these organizations called Transportation Management Associations, or TMAs. And basically TMAs, it's their job to help employers develop plans like this. I think there's something like 11 or 12 in the Denver area. There's one for the I-70 mountain corridor. There's another one in Boulder. But they're basically all consolidated to the Denver region, more or less. And those organizations have been very active in the planning process early on, back when it was just being considered as an ozone measure. And as it's their job to help employers with this, like they're going to be actively, doing outreach and helping employers develop their plans and coming up with creative ideas to help them meet their needs based on where they're located and what type of industry it is. And basically, the TMAs are only established in the Denver area, so they have a service area, and they either get their funding through grants or through membership dues. And so basically they're limited to working in their area. Like here and there, they'll provide help to companies outside of their service areas, but they can't really overextend themselves. So the amount of help would be somewhat limited, for companies that are outside the Denver area. And then the other consideration now is obviously COVID-19. So on the one hand, traffic counts are down. I think on any given day nowadays throughout the state, traffic is about 10% less than what it was pre-COVID numbers. That's a stat I got from CDOT recently. So on the one hand, this could be an opportunity to try to, maintain those traffic reductions that we've seen throughout the state, because a lot of companies have been forced to let people work from home. And what we've seen is that it's been working out pretty well. In a lot of cases, productivity actually has gone way up. But the flip side of COVID is the impact on the economy that it's had. And we heard from a lot of employers that this would be a very difficult time for them to have to develop these plans and like have one more thing to do while they're trying to, get back on their feet and settle things out after COVID. So I think ultimately that was a big consideration in the decision to only focus on Denver, is that, Denver has the bulk of the large employers, and they also have the help of the TMAs up there. And in addition to that, the MPOs, Dr. Cog and North Front Range MPO, are also, I think, going to play a role in helping out as well. And, there's PPACG in Colorado Springs, and there's an MPO in Pueblo, and then one in Grand Junction. And we have had some interaction with them, but I think Dr. Cog has by far the with their Way to Go website, they're very much like kind of ready to take this on. So yeah, so that's a little more of the background behind that. But good question, Patty.
Thank you. So to clarify, at this point in time, it's geographically required and voluntary elsewhere in the state.
Yeah, well, so at this point, it's the proposal is still being developed. So the division that I work for, the air pollution control division, we plan on requesting a rulemaking hearing before the Air Quality Control Commission in May, and then the actual hearing will happen in August. And you know, those commission meetings, basically the air division will present a proposal for the regulation, and it seems like our proposal is just going to be for the Denver non-attainment area and nothing outside. But really the commissioners ultimately decide what the regulation will look like. And I guess the other thing I'll say is there is an option for other groups to be a party to the rule, and they can submit an alternative proposal. I don't really have a sense of what the possibility of that happening will be. But you know, with that said, like what the division submits could look a little different both ways. It could be a little less stringent or more stringent, and that just depends on what happens in the rulemaking hearing. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Rick, before somebody else jumps in, let me just ask you a quick follow-up to that, because I think that was a great line of questioning from Patty. The Air Quality Commission, does that have representation from the Pikes Peak area?
I don't think so. They just had a few new members added. I'll try to pull that up real quick.
Yeah, I'm just sort of clarifying, because I think I've heard that there's not a lot of non-Denver representation or slash Fort Collins on that. So I think that's probably a good idea that you are eventually going to make a rule that is statewide. Might want to look at the representation of the group that's doing that, because I heard that might be an issue with a lot of folks, that this is a rule that would impact this region, but this region doesn't have any say on that commission. So I just confirmed what I had heard. So it sounds like that's kind of right. So thanks, Rick.
Yeah, thanks, John. I could bring that back to my management, but thanks. That's a great comment. And yeah, I posted a link to the commissioners and their profiles, and they're all appointed by the governor, by the way, and they serve a 1 to 2 year term, which can be extended.
Well, I want to thank everyone for the discussion, but I do think we need to move on to our next agenda item, unless anybody else has any questions they want to ask. Okay, Rick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'll be in touch with you about following up and future presentations. So thanks again for your flexibility, and I'm going to hop off now.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Sorry, I wasn't sure. Am I supposed to just go into it, or should I wait for the chair to announce the item?
Catherine, I think it's okay to just go on into it.
I didn't hit the right button. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. It's item B, I think, is the next one, correct?
Yes. All right.
concerning
Sorry,
TIF?
I just didn't want to steal your thunder there.
No, 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 that's fine. Take it all you want. No,
All
that's
right.
fine. Go ahead to the next one.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm Catherine Wenger, and sorry, my cameras doesn't seem to be working. I think I need to restart my computer, so forgive me on that. I'm a senior transportation planner with PPACG, and this item that I'm discussing is for our fiscal year 2022 through 2025 TIP draft. So, sorry, let me just pull it up on my screen so I can read it. There we go. All right, so due to our PPACG TIP, or our Transportation Improvement Program, being out of alignment with CDOT's statewide version, or their STIP, PPACG will be adopting 2 TIPs back to back. So we're going to be doing a fiscal year 2022 through 2025 update with approval in August. And then we're going to start another process actually pretty soon for fiscal year 2023 through 2027 in January of 2022. For that would be the final adoption to fix this issue. How that fixes it is the first one, this 22 through 25, will add year 25. Our current TIP is 21 through 24. So we're going to drop 21 and add 25. And that ensures that we can add CDOT's 2025 projects into our document. And then the next document is going to be 23 through 27. And that's going to actually be a 5-year TIP, so that future years don't fall out of alignment with CDOT, because CDOT doesn't update every year. We do them every 2 years. And so it creates an issue with timing. And so we're going to do 2 back-to-back and then turn it into a 5-year TIP to keep this issue from happening again. And so this memo is for the 22 through 25 TIP draft. So what you see here are the link that's provided here is to the draft document that we will be releasing to the public once it's approved by the committees and the board. And it lists projects for 22, 23, and 24 and 25. For 25, we're only going to be listing CDOT projects. You won't see any regional SDP, Metro, or TAP projects listed here, just because we're not required to have them there, and TAC has requested us to hold off until the next TIP we're adopting soon after to include those. So we're still in compliance. We're just kind of making sure that we can keep CDOT's projects in compliance and ours, and so that's why you see a little bit of differences between these TIP documents. So just to go over a quick schedule for this one in particular, we're bringing you the TIP draft for review and any comments you might want to provide on that document and the projects listed in March. We're taking it to the board for info in April. We'll see it again next month for a recommended approval to release to the public. And then the board will see it in May for that reason. And once the board approves it for public release, there'll be a full public comment period for 30 days, and we're going to be holding 2 virtual open houses in May. And then once that public comment period closes, you're going to see a draft TIP document come back to you and the public comments for review. So before we finalize the document, you'll have another chance to make any, all the committees will have a chance to review any public comments and see if we need to make any adjustments based on those. And then finally, in June and July, July, you'll see a recommended adoption, and then it'll go to the board in August for final approval. And you'll see a similar process happening for the next TIP as well, where we go through the draft and then the public release, public comments, and then that'll start happening in the fall into the winter. With that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
We got to ask her a question, folks. Might as well try. And you're always good for a question.
Well, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Well, I can't.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't print out the agenda or, all the information Catherine's talking about. You're not talking yet about United States 24 up through Ute Pass, are you?
I
Page 59, 65, 66. That's on farther down, I believe, with something else. I don't know. I just had a note to myself to ask a question about that.
about US 24.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the paving that's happening?
Yeah. Yes.
I believe that project is in here because they do have that in pieces, in sections that they're doing, and part of that is in this document. Mhm.
Well, would it be all right to ask a question? I wondered, it says in those pages, it would go west of Manitou to West Chipeta Park, $1,239,540 this year. Well, I didn't understand that. There were a lot of changes, things were zeroed out and changed, and
Oh, are you talking about the tip amendment?
I don't know. I'm
It
so
sounds-
sorry.
It's okay. It sounds like you're talking about the tip amendment, which would be the next, I believe, the action item in a few items later. And
Oh.
we can kind of go through that change,
Oh.
those changes then.
Well, I should have printed it out. I just didn't. So thank you, Catherine. I'm sorry to
No
interrupt.
problem.
Hey, Catherine, this is Shelley with the League. I have
Hi,
a couple
Shelley.
questions. Hi, on this was the tip draft under when that big link that you sent, it had project descriptions. That was one of those links. Is that correct? The tip draft?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So under project descriptions, which gives us a little bit more information of this, I have a few questions and I'm going to kind of summarize because 3 of them are about MMT. One of them is about the water quality mitigation.
Okay.
So MMT, it looks like they had vehicle purchases allotted 2019-091 for 7 vehicles between 2018 and 2022. And then also 2019-094, another MMT vehicle purchase for up to 10 vehicles between 2018 and 2022. Can you tell me how many have been purchased? I mean, that's a total of 17 vehicles between those years. How are we doing on that? Or do we talk to somebody else about that?
Yeah, we don't really keep track of that since that's MMT, but I'm happy to ask them that question and email you back.
Because that is in the project descriptions, right? So that's going to be over I'm assuming that's wrapping up or maybe
yes, and
prolonged
sometimes
into another year.
Yeah, and sometimes those do get delayed for various reasons. So
yeah,
but
the one
I'm
looked
happy
like
to-
it was being delayed into 2023, which was that second vehicle purchase. So I would like to know how many vehicles they've bought. And then again, not being from Colorado, I need can you give me kind of a 30-second elevator pitch? It looks like Northgate, Fairfax, Flying Horse, and I-25 powers those basins, those water retention ponds. That's a water quality mitigation issue over $8 million. Can you give me what that means, what that is?
Sure, and that's actually part of that big interchange that they're putting in for the I-25 and Powers interchange. You might have seen the construction happening. So that's the water mitigation piece that the state is funding, and then the actual interchange is considered a private funding. So that's also listed in the document, well, in a previous year, I believe. So that's what that piece is. It's the water mitigation piece of that interchange.
Okay, and I'm sorry. So when you say water mitigation, you are just basically moving the water away from what the construction you're doing to make sure that we don't have a flood problem wherever they're making a little ramp. Does that sound about right? Is that water mitigation?
That would be my assumption as well, but I'm definitely not a water engineer.
Okay, that makes sense. If we're doing construction, you got to figure out what to do with the water.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sorry?
Rick Hoover. I think those retention ponds are for retention of rainfall after the construction is done to to collect settlement and stuff like that, so that it doesn't end up going downriver. Those retention ponds are all over in new construction for future water retention for settlement.
Thank you for that clarification, Rick, on that. I appreciate that. Another item is the regional transit network that Invita, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that, Silver Key and Fountain Valley, that collaborative. Does that do the same thing as ATSMs with MMT? It looks like there's almost $1 million there. Are they doing the same thing? Or are they doing different things?
Well, I mean, they're kind of setting up similar, systems, but their MMTs is just for, the MMTs ridership, and the NVIDIA is for their ridership and their specific type of funding that they and clientele that they work with. So yeah, it's similar, but it's separate for separate groups of people.
Understood, but they are still going all after that senior category from what I understood in the descriptions, yes?
The NVIDIA, at least, I'd have to double check on the MMT. I can't remember all the projects specifically like that.
That's the way I read it, so thank you. And then MMT operating, or I'm sorry, it looks like in Downtown Transit Center MMT, does it look like we're going to get that built in 2023 possibly? That new Downtown Transit Center?
That is what they are listing. I know they've been, for some years, they had some, issues with actually finding a location, but I think they have now. So I think they are moving forward with that. So that is my understanding as well.
All right. And under MMT operating costs, it mentioned the 31st Street, or I'm sorry, there was a mention of 31st Street and Fontanero Bridge. There's a roundabout in the description, and I don't know, I'm sorry, if you can find this out. It says 2045 call for blank. I'd like to know what that is.
I'm going to guess it's call for projects. That project came from the long range plan. And so now they're requesting funding from to fund one of the projects from that project. So I'll go back and see why that's missing that. But
that would make sense. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions? Shall we go on then to item C, which is UPWP draft?
Sounds good. That is going to be me as well, Catherine Wenger, PPACG. All right, so per federal transportation regulations, PPACG as an MPO is required to develop a unified planning work program, or we call the UPWP. It specifies transportation planning activities that will occur in our MPO area. And at minimum, we have to include a description of our planning work and the resulting products, who will perform that work. Typically, it's PPACG staff or maybe consultants. Sometimes we list that. Timeframes for completing the work, the cost of the work, and the sources of the funds, which are typically federal. And then we also have our local match requirement as well, which come from dues. So per those federal regulations, we develop a new UPWP every 2 years, but we also typically complete kind of a mid-cycle update in between with that every year. So we do a new one year, update the next, and then start that process over. So this year, we're actually doing a full adoption and bringing the draft for your review, edits, and comments this month, and then requested action for adoption in the next, or recommended adoption, excuse me. So this year, we actually made some significant changes to our document. As far as content, not really. I mean, it's pretty similar to what we typically do as far as activities and making sure we're following all the federal requirements. But as far as how we set up the document, we've made some changes based on our federal planning recommendations, our federal planner, excuse me, the people that kind of check our documents. And they made some recommendations to us. So with that, they recommended that we add public outreach and involvement language on how we include the public in adopting and making sure that we have everything available to the public. And so we added language to just identify how we actually do that process on page 6. We also moved previous UPWP accomplishments to its own section up at the beginning. Previously, it was kind of broken out by work element, but we decided to move it up in its own section so that it was clear that that's what we did previously. And then later on, we talk about what we're going to do in the coming years. And then we also combined expenditure tables into one for each of the fiscal years instead of having it broken out by work element, just so that it's all clear in one table. And then finally, we also did some reorganizations of our work elements and the associated tasks. So previously, we had, starting at 600, we had different work elements to identify, the grouping of types of tasks that we do. And so we just moved those around to make them more clear and easier for us to actually bill to them, since we use these task numbers to bill for our those items for our salaries and things like that. So we combined the first two of the previous work elements into one, and we're calling that admin and coordination. We combined the next two into one. Instead of being GIS and modeling separate, we put them together because there's lots of crossover, and we're now calling it data management. So there's no, we found it more efficient to just have it under one there. And then we still have the TIP separate, the long range plan separate. We still have our environmental planning section, which is only for transportation related elements of that piece. And then we're also adding a new specialized mobility services for 5310. As some of you might remember, PPACG is now the designated recipient of 5310 funds, which are specialized transit funds. And we don't have actually any funds listed there yet, but we're waiting for guidance. And since this is a new thing under PPACG, we're gonna talk with our federal partners about how to incorporate that into that most effectively. And then we also added a new for safety activities. Well, we were doing the safety activities previously. They were under 600 and 601. We decided to pull them out and put them in their own section to really emphasize that this is, taking an important role in the agency as well. And then finally, we have direct expenditures, which are not, nothing's really changing there. It's just the things we use to identify those direct expenditures in the document. And so the draft document is available at the link provided. Please, review if you'd like. Let us know if you have any comments or questions. You can email me by April 29th, and we can try to incorporate those, or at least get your questions answered if you have any of those. With that, I'll take any questions.
All right, Catherine, this is Ann. Were you looking, is that on page 12 and so forth? Unified Planning Work Program?
Yes, that's the document.
I haven't read it yet, but I just noticed that you said you wanted your comments by April 7th.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. That was for the board. They have a different time frame. My apologies. The April 7th.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I'm trying to look on my cell phone and my iPad. Thank you. Oh, I have one
Any
more
other question? Oh, go ahead, Ann.
Well, you mentioned the MOP, the Metropolitan, is that what it is? Metropolitan Planning?
Yes. Metropolitan
District?
Planning Organization.
Yes, is that basically just Colorado Springs, or does that go up as far as Green Mountain Falls?
It does go all the way actually up to Woodland Park. It's not as big as our PPACG area boundary, but it
Except-
follows the urbanized area, which includes Green Mountain Falls and Woodland Park and Manitou and Monument and Fountain and Palmer Lake.
Oh, that's good. You know, I got confused because I'm also on the PPRTA and that's just El Paso County.
Well, I know, I totally understand. That's what I'm saying. You probably.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Okay. At this point, are we going to be looking at item D? Anybody have any questions on the other two? If not, then Jessica McMullen, who has got all the answers to what's going on in Denver.
We'd like to pretend. So thank you all. As you know, our legislative committee meets every Monday. I gave you guys all a link to our state bill website, which is where we track what bills PPACG's legislative committee has reviewed and proposed actions on. I figured today I'll just give you a real quick brief update that covers what the legislative committee heard for updates on Monday. And then I'll ask if anybody has any bills that they'd like me to go into more about why we took a specific position, or if you'd like to ask me to follow up and look into any other bills that weren't in our state bill list. So real quick updates for bills that PPACG was supporting. House Bill 1025 is a non-substantive emails and open meetings law. This is something to really help with CORA and other requirements. This passed out of the House and Senate and was sent to the governor for signing. House Bill 1065 is a veterans hiring preference that will be scheduled to be heard tomorrow. The House Bill 21-1095, it's a 811 location exemption for county road maintenance. This will help all of the PPACG member counties as they're trying to maintain roads. That one was heard today. And then House Bill 1205, it was the electric vehicle road usage equalization fee, and that bill died on the 24th. We monitored Senate Bill 165. It's a Department of Transportation procurement methods that died on the 25th. And then we have taken a position on Senate Bill 183, law enforcement support and accountability. We're monitoring this bill. We know that CCI, Colorado Counties Incorporated, is actively working to amend it. And there is an alternative bill being proposed with actual bipartisan sponsorship, which this one doesn't have. It's scheduled to be heard on April 6th. And then an interesting one that we didn't take a position on because it moved so quickly. Senate Bill 149 was wind energy facility sites located near military operations. This was actually a local issue and was one of the reasons the joint land use study was initiated, because that was one of the land use issues that happened between local governments and our military bases. So it was a very interesting one. There was an agreement between the different parties, the legislator running the bill, as well as the lobbyists for different organizations and a variety of information gatherers who all were engaging and talking about the bill. But it died on March 23rd before it was introduced and died before the committee had a chance to vote on it to determine a position. We had several more bills dropped in the last week. Specifically, there were 20 new bills introduced. None of them triggered our lobbyists to highlight those as a PPACG bill. And then just other interesting things. We've got a transportation funding proposal that we've seen come out, but we don't have a bill yet. We're still waiting to see what those specifics are going to look like rather than what the conversation is. So does anyone have any questions about those updates, about the bills we've already reviewed, or that you'd like a bill that you'd like me to look at and get back to you with some details on?
Anybody join in? Ask her a question.
It's Ann again. I would just like to say thank you for putting that on the agenda with that link. Can you hear me okay, Jessica?
Yep, we can hear you.
I think that is such a big help. I really looked at all of those. I'm watching some bills about forest health, and I like that open meetings business, you know, because I'm on the fire mitigation committee in Green Mountain Falls, and we had an issue about can we talk among ourselves without, you know what I'm saying. That was good. And what was the other one? Oh, the house, the wildfire mitigation, where they may set up a regional, not a regional, but you know, a little, we'd have to vote on it probably, a regional fund to fight fires. I thought that was good. One you mentioned that I didn't really look at. What was that about county roads and stuff like that?
So
What was
that is, give me just a second and I'll pop it up. House Bill 10 or House Bill 1095. It's the 811 locate exemption for county road maintenance.
House Bill 1095?
Yep.
All right, well, I'll just look at that. That sounds important. So thank you. Thank you.
It's one that
you do.
And then I do want to
Yeah.
chime in because Ann, you made me reminded me of this. We've actually been working with Representative Terry Carver on several different wildfire mitigation advocacy and issues as we're looking to see what bills are going to be introduced, as well as for us to help keep an eye on some of the regulation issues that are ongoing.
Oh, that's good. Well,
So
that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm learning a lot.
it's very much on our transportation funding, wildfire mitigation, and a lot of the senior
water
service provisions have been very active this year and are ones we're expecting to see some things moving on.
Well, we've really got to do it. Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Rick Hoover. So you'll have a report on that particular bill next month on the county road maintenance?
So if you are interested in more information on that bill, you can either ask me specific questions, or if you go to that state bill link attached in your packet, that bill actually, we've got the description of it and where it is.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on my other computer. And it says it was to go to on the 3:30, so that was yesterday. And I was just wondering if you're going to have an update on that next month.
Our lobbyist actually gives us an update whenever something moves on them.
Okay.
So she's also normally monitoring for any amendments that are being proposed. Those aren't always something you get enough heads up on. So that's been one of the good things this year that's been very exciting, is we've had some good outreach on amendments for things.
Yeah, very nice feature. Thank you.
That's really helpful to know exactly when things happen. People can also get online and actually tune into committee hearings too. I found that out. That's very fascinating.
Well,
So,
and as
thank you.
individuals, if you guys didn't know this, you can testify online. You don't have to go up to the Capitol anymore, and especially right now. But you sign up online if you ever see a bill that you personally are interested in, or you know a group that needs to be paying attention to. There's a way to do that online. I will happily send anyone who wants it the information on doing that.
Oh,
our
that'd
voices
be,
are important.
yeah. Would you send it out to? I'd like to hear it officially from you. There may be others. So, thank you, Jessica.
Anybody else have questions? Jessica, there's got to be more questions. If not, thank you. for doing a good job. Anything else you'd like to add? No? Okay, then at that point, we will go on to action items. Number 5, FFY 21-24, tip amendment 11. Catherine, you're up.
So Catherine Wenger, PPACG. All right, so this is a tip amendment number 11 request for the currently adopted tip, so the one that is current for FY 21 through 24. And these changes have been requested by CDOT, and MMT has one as well. So the reason there are so many is because we are doing CDOT has requested a reconciliation between the tip and the STIP and the changes. We just want to make sure we're up to date before the official new STIP gets adopted, which is the statewide transportation improvement program. So the changes that had been requested are outlined in the table below and also in attachment 1, the letter from CDOT. So I'll do a quick review of that and we can do questions at the end or whenever you want, I guess. All right, so the first two are adding RPP, which are regional priority pool funds. Those are state funds for FY22 for the two projects, State Highway 21 corridor and US 24 at 31st Street intersection improvements. The next one is add surface treatment funds, which are part federal, part state to FY21 and 22 for the minor ramp rehabs at I-25, North Academy, Briargate, and Interquest and NORAD. The next one, add funds per the CDOT request on US surface treatment west of Manitou Springs to West Chipeta Park. I believe this is the one Ann was asking about. They are adding state and federal STP funds, and the total cost for that surface treatment, which is, I think they're just doing an overlay there, is 1.2 million just for that section. They are doing other sections of that roadway. This is just for that section in particular. And then the next one is to remove, or the next two, excuse, the next few are to remove projects, activities occurring under another project listing. This is for that I-25 ramp repairs. It's actually, it looks like a duplicate. The next one is to remove that project. They're being done under another project listing. So again, that's that US 24 west of Manitou to West Chipeta Park bridge. They incorporated that into another project. And so they're removing this particular listing so that they're not double up on the funding. The next one is to remove the project duplicate for State Highway 21 Astra Zone Boulevard and Hancock Expressway signal replacements. This is done under already listed in the tip elsewhere. And then remove project limits were updated and the project was renamed for US West mile point 284 to 292. The next one is project funds removed due to COVID funding issues. The funding will be will be returned at a future tip amendment. So that's for State Highway 85 and Maxwell Roundabout. For these COVID issue ones, it is due to the funds come from a program that is funded through, I believe, license plate tax or a fee, excuse me, not a tax, a fee. And that fee wasn't collected over the last year because of COVID. And so we don't have the funds to actually put into that account and then spend it on these projects. So some of them are going to have to be put on hold, or they were used funds from elsewhere to make that project whole, which is the case for the State Highway 16 and Sneffels signal and intersection improvements. It's actually completed using other funds. The next one after that is the US 24 at Academy Park Loop, US 24 at Mallard Drive and new signal project. The next one being removed due to COVID is State Highway 115 at St. Elmo Avenue, Ramona Avenue, and Brookside signal replacements. And the next one is State Highway 83 passing lanes. I believe most of that is actually being done with other funds, but I'd have to check and see that. And then we have project funds adjusted due to updates to timing, staff workload, and funding availability for the next three projects are for the bill grant. these are still fully funded. They're just making updates to actuals versus what they were estimating before. And that project's still moving forward, or the multiple projects are still moving forward. And then finally, we have add a new project because MMT was awarded new funds for an Academy Boulevard high capacity transit corridor and improvement study. And so they just requested to add that project in because they're receiving those funds. With all of that, I can try to answer your questions. If I can't, I will ask CDOT for you as well.
You know, somebody.
Questions, folks?
Yes, this is Gary Sugar. On 2019, the minor ramp rehabs, everything looks like it's on I-25 on the north end of town with North Academy, Briargate, and Interquest. Can you clarify where this NORAD ramp rehab is located? Because the NORAD ramp is off of 115.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I can certainly ask for that clarification.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Catherine, I still don't understand about Highway US 24 west of Manitou. It says west to Chipeta Park Bridge. And then the one couple above that, it says surface treatment, which is funded to West Chipeta Park. Now, that just doesn't make sense. It should go clear up through to Woodland, shouldn't it, John? Or
Like, I think this is the piece that's just stopping at west of Chipeta Park, and then they're going to pick it up from west of Chipeta Park and go into Woodland Park. So I think this is just a portion of that project. I think there's going to be, I believe there's going to be more.
Well, that's what I was hoping, because it stopped, you know, just about at the first entrance of Green Mountain Falls to repair the potholes and all that. And we need more. So what did you say STP means?
STP is the Surface Transportation Program.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
That's a federal.
And John DeVoe, I think that project to go through to Woodland is scheduled for this summer.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you so much.
Anybody else? If not, let's proceed on.
And this is an action item, so we'll need to
Yes.
vote.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. We're going to need to vote on that. Okay. I need a motion and a second, and we'll vote on the action item. Thank you.
This is Gordon Rick. I'd like to make a motion to approve Amendment 11 to the FY 21-24 tip.
We're looking for a
This is
second.
Miley. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need to do a roll call? How do you want to do it, Jessica?
What we've been doing is just all in favor say aye, and then any opposed say nay.
I'd like that idea. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion passed. Next item.
That's about it.
It would be member discussion. Everything we want to talk about, then items for the next meeting and the schedules, and one of your Jessicas will help us with this.
I actually do have ones that I'm not really sure whether it's member discussion or items for next CAC meeting. At the beginning of, right before we started, someone asked me about when we might be able to start meeting in person again. PPACG staff, we're all working really hard to get all of those hybrid options up and going. We should have something capable where a few of our CAC members will be able to be in person by either our April meeting or our May meeting. So we've got some movement going on that, and you guys will be the test monkeys before the board gets it.
Jessica, John DeVoe, up in Woodland, we allow it both ways. Certain people can come in, there's a limit, they set quotas, and everybody else is online, including participants, people on the committee. And that seems to work really well for us.
And that's our plan. We're just making sure right now we don't have the functional cameras or screens to really make that work yet. So we're hoping to have those in place.
Jessica, I prefer the term guinea pigs rather than test monkeys.
I'll work on that. Guinea pig.
Anything else for the good of the order? Anybody else?
I have something.
Go ahead.
So the League of Women Voters, of course, you guys know next week is election week. Be sure to turn in your ballots if you have not done so already. If you have any questions, you can go to vote411.org. But we also have a podcast called Making Democracy Work. Sorry, you kind of heard a little bit my Southern right there. Making Democracy Work is a podcast that I need guests, or we want to invite guests that you may know that might want to come on there. The topics that we do for the league: good government, basically anything that talks about good government, like that one issue, extending the words on the for ballot for tax stuff like that. That's one of your issues on your current ballot. Voter education and outreach, and civics education. If anyone is interested in those topics or knows a perfect candidate that might be interested in being on our podcast, those are our main kind of goals. And I can really take anyone's subject and wrap it around those pretty much usually. So that's basically what, if you know somebody, please pass them my way. And Anne, we are on for 7:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Thank you. 7:30.
Shelley, this is Laura. I'm just saying, never apologize for being Southern.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
That's true. I lived in North Carolina for 53 years.
We just talk a little different. It's okay.
Amen. Thank you, guys.
That we want to talk about, or shall we look for adjournment? How about the next meeting schedule and date? What do you have the next meeting set for?
Next
We
meeting.
are set to meet again April 28th.
Okay, very good. And you still got almost a month for your taxes are due. Okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn if there's no other questions before us.
I move we adjourn. Sharon Brown.
Thank you, Sharon. A second?
I second the motion, Gordon Rick.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Okay. Motion carried. Good night, you all.
Good night. Good night.
Have a good April.
Nice job, John.
Happy Easter.